Welcome to Kaleidoscope, where we are positive, daring, different and inclusive. It's Holy Week and Christians around the world remember Jesus' crucifixion and his resurrection. The Romans crucified thousands, and so in the first 2 centuries, because of its gruesome past, the cross was not used. Instead, the fish symbol was used as a reminder that Jesus made his disciples fishers of men. We'll be having a chat later on about the origins of the cross. Now let's get on with Kaleidoscope. To our wonderful partners, Skills for Inclusive Growth in Australian Aid, Srilanka Life, CDB, the Daily Morning Newspaper and Made by Her, thank you very much. And if you'd like to follow us, please subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn.
You can now start a CDB iDeposit digital fixed deposit and experience a range of special benefits from CDB.
Looking back at the week that was on CDB Snapshot, let's start with some good news. Headline inflation decreases further to 50.3% in March. Sri Lanka's total official reserve assets increased to $2.7 billion also in March. The ADB expects the Sri Lankan economy to contract 3% in 2023 before seeing a positive growth of 1.3% in 2024. Sri Lanka ranks number 5 as the 10 cheapest countries to live in. Afghanistan tops the list. Rukshani Veerasurya Vijayamana has been shortlisted for the 2023 Commonwealth Short Story Prize. The prize was won by Sri Lankan Kanya Dialmeda in 2021 and author Amina Hussain is on the 2023 panel of judges. Vogue Philippines features 106-year-old tattoo artist Apo Wang Od, making her the oldest person on the cover. England moves to ban wet wipes and plastic-based wipes to tackle water pollution.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. Women in the formal labour force participation in Sri Lanka is dismally low, between 30 to 35%, which means Sri Lanka's development agenda is compromised. In retail distribution, female representation is even less. Ceylon Biscuits Limited, Sri Lanka's premier food manufacturing conglomerate, decided to change the status quo. Road to Success or Sene Hasin Jaya Magata is the initiative launched by CBL under the IFC Women in Work Partnership and Australian Aid to increase women's participation in distribution. Group Managing Director Shia Vikramasinghe joins us on the show. Shia, how do women who have joined the network actually overcome the challenges of being in a male-dominated area of work?
One of the objectives of our workshops was to really educate and bring awareness to our distributors and dealers on the importance of inclusivity into their business, that there was a very valuable resource within their reach that could really contribute into the business. And quite honestly, our distributors embraced this, paving the way for greater female participation in their business. That was really meaningful also for them.
And what insights did these women bring into the distribution business?
What we saw when women participated in the business, they were able to bring a different perspective into the business. Women tend to be more empathetic on many occasions. And we saw an increase in the communication within the business and better HR relationships. It was interesting to note that female-owned and led businesses fared very much better in embracing new technology, HR practices, and financial management into their business than their male counterparts.
And here's what our markets look like this week. The all share price index dropped by another 1% as investors continued to look at alternate fixed income investments, which were yielding around 25% per annum. This week's announcement of oil production cuts from Saudi Arabia and other OPEC plus oil producers sent WTI oil prices surging to $81 per barrel. Gold prices rose to above $2,000 per ounce, their highest level in 1 year, with weak US economic data leading to safe haven demand. For a person with a disability, challenges are many, as are stigmas. But Stefano Ponso, who is both hearing and sight impaired, smashed the stigmas and followed his passion into the kitchen. Stefan schooled in Moratu and loved pottering in the kitchen. Today, he has turned out to be a super chocolatier at Cinnamon Grand, Colombo. Having finished hotel school, he worked his way up at the hotel to now be a commis stew chef, crafting some of the most beautiful chocolate masterpieces you can find. Inspired by MasterChef Gordon Ramsay and an ever-supportive mother who has always backed him, Stefan's most joyous moment is seeing people enjoy his lovingly crafted chocolates. Stefan is a great example of the Easter message of hope. Something fishy is going on in the depths of the ocean. Scientists discovered an unknown snailfish species at a depth of 8,336 meters in deep trenches off Japan. They are now officially the deepest ever fish species found. The big five in wildlife have been dethroned. The new big five have been revealed. The 5 animals people want to see most photographed: the elephant, polar bear, lion, gorilla and tiger. Park Street Gourmet goes festive this Aurudu with a uniquely beautiful gift option, a colourful Palmyra box filled with Aurudu sweetmeats, ideal as a gift or even for yourself. Happy Aurudu! Up next on S4IG Let's Talk is Dr. Danan Senatiraja, National Director of World Vision Lanka, and we delve into the origins of the cross. Welcome to Kaleidoscope S4IG Let's Talk. We at Kaleidoscope are all for religious coexistence, and we embrace the practices and histories of religions around the world. Today, as we celebrate Holy Week, we focus on the origins of the cross. The cross gained some fame due to it being central to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in 33 AD. But how much do we know about the cross, which forms the axis to an event that shaped world history? On S4IG Let's Talk today, we have the National Director of World Vision Lanka, Dr. Danan Senatiraja, who is also a bit of a history buff, to take us through some of that history. Danan, welcome to the show. There's so much spoken about the cross, but always in the context of Jesus' crucifixion. What are the origins of the cross?
I believe that it was the Babylonians who started it off, and then the Romans perfected the art. But in between, the Assyrians and the Carthaginians, then the Greeks, they mastered the art as well in between. And from about 6th century BC up to the 4th century AD, crucifixion was quite common until Constantine, the first Christian emperor, did away with it. But there have been instances of crucifixion throughout history, even up to the 20th century.
Were there any distinctions of how people were crucified? Race, caste, creed, that kind of thing?
Generally, most of them crucified those who were rebellious, those who rose up against governmental authorities, and highwaymen, murderers. Those were the kind of people who were crucified. But at the same time, they generally didn't crucify their own people. For example, if you were a Roman citizen, the Romans would not have crucified you.
So, was Golgotha, the place of the skull as it was called, a common ground for executions like these, or were there others as well?
It seems so, because that was perhaps the place that was reserved by the Romans to execute and to crucify people during their period in Jerusalem.
So, Via Dolorosa is a buzzing hub of humanity. It's where daily life occurs as a matter of course. Now, Jesus walked this route to Golgotha. Was this the common route taken by people who were deemed to be crucified, or do prisoners just have their own journey mapped out separately?
It's likely that there would have been very few instances of the prisoner carrying his cross and walking through what we call as Via Dolorosa today. The primary reason is because the Roman governor who gave the order to execute Jesus, Pontius Pilate, did not live in Jerusalem. He was only visiting Jerusalem at that time in order to oversee arrangements or security arrangements for the Passover. So most likely, most of the orders for execution would have been passed in Caesarea Maritima. That's where the Roman governor had his office and his palace. So the Via Dolorosa might have been an exception where the Lord was asked to carry his cross, or perhaps the crossbeam, and then walk through the streets of Jerusalem as a punishment.
Were there different types of crosses, or was it just the standard cross that we know?
The one that is most popular is the one that we see in Christianity, but there were others in the form of a capital T, then X, or sometimes simply an upright pole, a vertical pole.
And I know you sort of touched on it earlier, but do we have crucifixions in today's context as well, and does it kind of continue? And does Golgotha also still exist?
Yeah, Golgotha is now a place of worship, and that's where I believe the Church of the Holy Sepulchre exists today. So it's a place of veneration today. But there have been instances even in the 20th and the 21st centuries. In certain Middle Eastern countries, certain groups have crucified people, but that's after beheading them, they nail the body to the cross. But there have been instances as late as the middle of the 20th century where in Japan there were some crucifixions. There were 26 Christians who were crucified in the 1920s in Japan.
And what can we learn from the origins of the cross?
A cross or crucifixion, from that you get the English word excruciating as well, unbearable pain, is perhaps the most painful and humiliating death. Romans crucified their victims stark naked. The men were crucified facing outward, women were crucified facing the cross.
There were women as well.
Women also were crucified, sometimes children as well. Even during the religious upheavals in Europe in the 15th century, a 13-year-old girl was crucified in Spain, and she was beaten up, and then finally she was crucified and she was beheaded. So it's a very cruel form of killing someone, extreme pain, and every bit of dignity that you have is taken away.
Thank you so much. It's a lot to ponder on, especially during Holy Week. Welcome to Kaleidoscope Made by Her Life in 60. Easter is also about bunnies, so what better way to enjoy our Made by Her Life in 60 than to get into the mind of little bunny Wawa. Daphne Charles was inspired by her 2-year-old daughter to pen a story, and we asked Daphne how Wawa came to be, what was most exciting about writing the book, and what we as adults can learn from this book.
The name Wawa itself is what my husband and I would playfully call our daughter before she was born, in anticipation of all the crying that she would do. The actual inspiration of the story comes from an incident when she was around 2.5 years old, how she retraced her steps to find something she had lost. So I saw in it a story idea that could be used. Well, I've always fancied myself a bit of a writer, but I've never been successful in actually completing anything that I've started. So what was most exciting for me about writing this was the ease with which all the ideas flowed. So I felt that this was a story that perhaps needed to be told. Well, I suppose any mom will tell you this, that there is much that we can learn from our children. But the main takeaway from this book is that when we find ourselves in a bit of a soup, as we probably will in life quite often, all we have to do is just take a step back, breathe, and retrace our steps to find the root of the problem, or possibly even a way out of it.
A blessed Good Friday and happy Easter. We'll be back next week with our Aurudu special.